This is Andrew Khellah. I'm standing by at this time with none other than Hall of Famer, WWE legend, Greg the Hammer Valentine, here backstage at the ECPW show in Lafayette, New Jersey. Greg, thank you so much for joining. It is absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, you've trained, you started off training with Stu Hart in Canada.
Yeah.
Now, there was a story that, I don't know if this is true or not, but you actually drove 100 miles in black ice just to make a $20 payday?
No, it was, we wrestled in Regina, Saskatchewan, I guess that's how you say the word. And I was with Bob Sweetan, that's a name from the past. It's just me and him, and we drove not 100 miles, but 500 miles back to Calgary on black ice. And we were all over the place, and we got back 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, slept however long you could sleep, 6 hours, and then they did their TV that night in Calgary, so at the Stampede. Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable. Calgary's unbelievable.
You have one of the early illustrious careers. You trained with Don Owens in Portland. You trained, here's Terry Funk and Dory Funk in Amarillo. You trained with Bill Watson in Oklahoma, for Jim Barnett in Georgia, for Eddie Graham in Florida, and for Jim Crockett in the Mid-Atlantics. All those promotions and promoters, what is something that stands out, or a story, or maybe one of those favorite promoters?
Well, both Bill Watts, Eddie Graham, they gave me a lot of insight and psychology, and they ran their territories like Florida and Oklahoma and Louisiana. They wrestled. They didn't just throw chops and do a bunch of silly high spots. It was actually wrestling. So I learned a lot from every one of those guys that you just mentioned.
And in the NWA, one of the famous matches you had was Starrcade '83, the dog collar match with Roddy Piper. Is that up there as one of your top wrestling matches all time? Well,
I hated that match because it hurt. You know, it hurt me a lot. But when I watch it, I'm real proud of it. And everybody, you know, I mean, that's their number one match of Piper, and number one match, I guess, of myself, because it was so unique. It was the very first hardcore match ever, and I don't think anybody could ever duplicate that dog collar match that we had. It was super.
Now, a lot of people don't know this, but you actually did win the WWF title from Bob Backlund in the 70s, but then they took the belt off of you and they never acknowledged it on television. Do you remember that?
1979. Yeah, it was like a double pin. I actually got the pin because I suplexed Backlund back, but they said he raised his shoulder at the last, before the 3 count, so first of all, I walked out with the title in the Garden, world champion, got a lot of pictures taken with it, and then they came and snatched it away from me. So I was a world champion 30 days. You know, it's better than nothing, I guess.
What was the decision to take the title off of you? But then the thing is, what's funny is they never acknowledged it, and a lot of fans were outraged by that.
Yeah, me too, but, that's the way things were back then. But I always remind them I was WWW, whatever. I had 3 W's back then.
WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
I was the world champion. I did have the Intercontinental Championship and the World Tag Team Championship in United States title 4 different times, World Tag Team title 3 different times with Ric Flair, so a lot of history.
And what about your tag team match along with Brutus Beefcake defending the tag team titles at WrestleMania 2 against the British Bulldogs? That's probably one of the best matches probably that year.
Yeah, it was a great match, but we lost. So that's the only, put a dapper on it right there.
Did you want to hit Ozzy Osbourne? I mean, he got himself involved in that match.
Well, I knew Ozzy Osbourne. I met him in Japan, and he's an idiot, but that's okay.
Want to elaborate it all on?
He's made a lot of money going, Jesus Christ.
Now, thoughts on the Honky Tonk Man and the Rhythm and Blues tag team? Like, people have said that you hated it, you didn't like it, that there was a rib that they called you Blue and Honky all Rhythm. What do you have to say about the Rhythm and Blues tag team?
Well, I didn't want to do it, and they chased little Jimmy Hart, a little mouse. He chased me all over the place with black hair dye for a year, and finally I just got fit. All right, go ahead, dye my hair black. I don't give a. He said, they're going to fire you if you don't. So I should have let him fire me, but instead I went out. I did that for about a year. It actually became fun because I didn't have to go out there and be the old stiff Greg Valentine. I loosened up.
People love that.
And put the showbiz in, and yet they love the stiffness. Yeah, but and you know, a lot of people said I sold out, but you know what? Got me another year of good money, and they promised that they were going to put the World Tag Team belts on us, but it didn't happen because Vince signed the Road Warriors instead. So he ended up letting me go, but laid me off. I still had a job, but I went to Japan 3 times a month, which actually was better than hanging around New York all the time. And then he brought in Honky as his announcer, and Honky quit because he couldn't stand being near Vince.
Oh, is that so? And what about
Truth.
like I don't want to get in your, but you could elaborate on that. Why did Honky have heat with Vince?
Well, no, it wasn't heat. He just he just couldn't stand to be around. He didn't like Vince McMahon.
One of the things that came out of the Rhythm and Blues was you had one of the rarest Hasbro figures. The Hasbro figures where you're wearing the Rhythm and Blues, it was never released. And actually, I believe Zack Ryder is an owner of that. I think he had it and he sold it, but that Hasbro has went for almost $50,000-$60,000.
Yeah.
Do you remember that Hasbro? And what would
I have a prototype. Yeah, they gave me a prototype. We went to Pittsburgh, and I remember because I was right next to Franco Harris, the great running back, in Pittsburgh, where Hasbro is, and they gave me one of those, and I still have it at the house. But it's the dog got it and chewed on it a little bit, you know, so it's not very good shape.
What was your favorite opponent of all time that you wrestled?
I guess I'd have to say Tito.
Tito?
Yeah.
How about that cage match you had in Baltimore in the early 80s for the Intercontinental Championship, the big blow-off match? Was that probably one of your favorite matches in WWE?
Yeah, it was my favorite match, but I lost that one too. But I'll tell you what, Ronnie Garvin, rugged Ronnie Garvin, was one of my favorites. You know,
that was a great underrated match that you guys had. It was actually like one of the top Royal Rumble with the submission match where you guys were going with the near falls and the submission match. I think that was great. And you actually won that match, and I think you cost him his job at one point, and he became a lowly referee, and then you brought him back.
And then he kept coming out and causing me to lose. It was a great storyline, and Ronnie's a great guy. I really loved, you know, he didn't cry about when I hit him hard, and I didn't cry when he hit me hard. You know, a lot of guys, you know, like I tried to wrestle Beefcake. Oh, don't hit me. I'm a big baby. You know, so.
A lot of people have said that a Beefcake doesn't like. I think is it true that Beefcake at one time? This is you brought it up. That he complained about one of the toughest guys in the business, Haku, and then Haku grabbed him by the throat in the shower. That was a big rumor on the internet. Was that true?
Yeah, I was actually homesick, so it was Jimmy Jack Funk and Brutus Beefcake against the Islanders, and I only heard about it, but I heard he came in and grabbed him by the neck and pushed him up against the locker. Ooh, you know. Beefcake's a big chicken shit anyway. I mean, I'm sorry. He's a big chicken.
Did you have any problems with Beefcake while in WWE or afterwards? I mean, I know I see you guys a lot on the indies.
A couple of times I told him to get out of the car. I was going to kick his ass. You know, he's being a big baby. And one time we're in the garden or somewhere, some big crowd. The Bulldogs used to just beat the crap out of him. He couldn't get over to tag me. Finally he comes over and he's crying. They hurt me. So I came in and I, you know, hit him back and leave my partner alone. He's a sissy.
Did he get a lot of heat? I don't know. A lot of the guys respect you, but a lot of guys he had heat with because they quote unquote he was like a stooge for Hulk Hogan or.
Well, yeah, he carried Hogan's bag, you know, and don't ask me what was in that bag.
I want to ask you more like a serious. Whose death in wrestling? We had a lot of sad ones. Like whose death in wrestling hit you the hardest?
Well, the most recent, Roddy Piper, because we were good friends. He was a real man and a real talent. Dusty Rhodes, you know, me and Dusty were down the highway in the early '70s together. And man, there's, you know, I guess Piper, Dusty Rhodes. That's all I can think of right now.
One of my last questions. There was a rumor in the 80s that there was going to be a union formed from Jesse Ventura or Roddy Piper, as you just mentioned. Was that true, and what happened?
I didn't hear about Piper, but I heard about Jesse Ventura. And but they got rid of him after that. So, but he ended up getting a hell of a lawsuit from Vince. You know,
on the Coliseum home video from using his royalty.
$1 million, yeah. So.
And last question. Well, actually, two last questions. Your favorite cities or places that you performed in?
My favorite cities is Seattle, Washington, where I'm from. I love New York City to perform here. I wouldn't really want to live in New York City, but I love Madison Square Garden. I love all that. I love Manhattan, And I got to say Florida, where I live, Tampa Bay area.
And what about your Hall of Fame induction in 2004? How was that honor like when you're inducted with Tito Santana and a lot of superstar Billy Graham, Sergeant Slaughter in that year?
Yeah, John Studd and
big class, Junkyard Dog.
Junkyard Dog, and a lot of those guys that passed away. That was great. And, we did the night before WrestleMania 20 at the Hilton. We did all of our speeches and stuff. And then they put us out at intermission at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 20, had us all out there and introduced us. And it was a great feeling,
The last question now. The Randy Savage, they were supposed to be like a memorial show, and there was like heat between you and Lanny. Was that all, what's the story behind that?
Oh, the story behind that is the idiot that ran the show had me going to 4 different places before I got to Ottawa. I saw this ticket. I said, I'm not doing it. I called him up and told him I wanted to do it. I said, you change that ticket. I don't need to go to Memphis, Chicago, to here, to there, to get to Ottawa.
Put you in 4 stops all over the place.
Yeah, and that's why we had the argument. And then he actually taped my conversation.
Played it on the internet.
And he played it on the internet, yeah. And the only thing I said bad about Lanny was he was dumber than I was.
If you showed up,
If he shows up.
But
That's all I said. And then Lanny went off. But,
He's a good sport. He's a good guy.
I took the high road. He said some things that weren't too tasteful about me, but, I let it go. I mean, what am I going to do? Put my one arm behind the back and fight him? I could beat him with one little finger.
Greg, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You know what Lanny's favorite for, right?
What?
I can't tell you.
I've heard the story, but I don't know if you want to. Is it true?
No.
Okay.
I think it's
For another time, folks. We'll see you next time.
He's a good guy.